need to do events. You don't have any events coming. What the fudge? Where's he gone?
$41 waiting. Where's it gone?
Why can't I see it?
Why?
It's here.
Okay.
Starting.
Okay. Did you press go? Don't you have to do preview? And that's okay.
I think we're live, John.
Okay. I'll just check. Yep, I think we're live. So I'd like to welcome everybody who's waiting. We're a couple of minutes ahead of 6 o'clock finish time. And I'm John Hudson, and I'm with Andy from SDRplay. And a couple of minutes we'll get going. We're going to basically take questions via the chat, and I just by way of testing that the chat is working, perhaps we could, if one of the people watching now could just add a chat, we can make sure that we're able to monitor it. Ah, great, Ismo, I see you're there. Nice to say hello, and also a big hello to everybody from the Finnish DX Association that I had the pleasure of meeting up in Tampere over a year ago now. So here we are in near Bedford, just about 1 hour north of London. Andy has driven up from his home location in Kent, and we're very much looking forward to addressing some of your questions. And for newcomers to SDR, and particularly to SDRplay, we hope that you'll find this useful by way of introduction to the products, how to use them, some of the software, and hopefully we can answer some of the technical and questions around software. Andy is our, I guess it's officially 6 o'clock, so let's kick off. Hello and welcome. I think we have 50 people tuned in. A very big warm welcome to you on this webinar, which is for the Finnish DX Association and Finnish Amateur Radio Community. I'm John, G4ABQ, and one of the co-founders of SDRplay, along with Andy. Maybe you'd like to introduce yourself, Andy?
Yeah, my name's Andy. I'm also co-founder of SDRplay, responsible for software development and general software support for all of our products.
And it looks like our chat system is working, and it's good. Thank you for the feedback that you can hear us, and you're hearing us well, so that's good. And obviously if any technical problems happen, just let us know. We're obviously very dependent on the internet, and it can play up. We had a few fun and games.
We've had some interesting
get it to this point. So
yeah.
I've got some specific questions around remote location, how to set that up, which we'll come on to a bit later. We'll also talk a little bit about the differences between the newer products and the older products in terms of particularly below 1.5 megs. We'll talk about the purchasing process, and also a lot about the support and the communities that are out there, and show some examples of that. But what we thought we'd kick off with is really a look at what it's like when you first get hold of an RSP and download our software, the Windows-based SDRuno, and start using it. So Andy's going to talk through that, and all being well, you should see on your screens exactly what would appear on your screen if you were doing it at your own location.
Okay, should we do it?
Yeah.
So, hello everybody. What we're going to concentrate on now is the is a dual tuner layout for the RSP Duo. Once you've got the SDRuno software, basically getting it up and running is pretty much the same for all of the products. But we're going to show you the RSP Duo, and we're going to look at 2 independent frequencies on with the same box. Behind me here, we have an RSP Duo. I don't know if you can see that on the table there. There's an RSP Duo. One of the tuners is fed from a Wellbrook loop antenna, and the other tuner is fed from a G5 RV. So I don't know if you can see that we've got 2 tuners. The 2 tuners connected into those inputs there.
Into the 50 ohm ports.
We're using the 50 ohm ports for this demonstration. Okay. So let's get the software started. So when you start SDRuno for the first time, it's actually started on my other monitor, but it's going to basically start with it's going to fill the screen with all of these windows, as probably many of you have already seen. What we've got with the RSP Duo is the ability for the software to recognize what screen you're on and organize the windows for you. So in the options menu under auto layouts, we've got RSP Duo Master. We click that and it will organize all of the windows in the top half of the screen. The RSP Duo always starts in single tuner mode, so that it can be used just like any other RSP. It can be used like an RSP 1A or an RSP 2. You can see the full 10 megahertz of spectrum, but in this demonstration we're going to show you the 2 tuners running together. So we need to, in the main window, we need to switch from single tuner to dual tuner mode. What that's done is it's actually removed the ability to switch tuners now, because we're locked now into the first tuner. So we're going to start SDRuno again. In fact, I'll just start this so you can actually see some. We've got some signals there, and I'll start SDRuno again. If I can find my icon, which is there, and again it's started up on my other monitor. So literally all I have to do is just drag the main window over, just so that the main window is somewhere in the monitor that you're using, and then just click Options, Auto Layouts, and in this case I want to set this one up as the slave, and it will auto layout all of the windows into the bottom half of the display. And you can see that this layout is now set up for tuner 2. So you can see that we've got in the main window this is a 0, saying this is the first instance of SDRuno, and there's a 1 here in this main window to show that this is the second instance of SDRuno. And again, I'll just press play, and we've got some more signals there.
Should I unmute and give us
a? So where should we go? We're I know 80 meters. There's something down there, John. Let's have a have a listen on here. So we'll try to find some.
This one.
Obviously some.
Sounds like a German station.
Somewhat dependent on the activity, but so at the moment these are in the same sort of frequency range, but we could leave tuner 2 quite happily on 80 meters, and the first tuner we can go. In fact, we can go down to medium wave. We've probably got a bit. There's a lot of stuff going on there. Good. back off the gain a little bit. So this is now medium wave. We can go down even lower, down to 900 kilohertz. But quite equally, we could go up. So we can now go up to 20 megs. We go up to
2 meter ham band.
Or 120 megahertz.
120 megs.
Is it 140 2 meters?
Or 120. There's probably some aircraft activity. Look, you can see some aircraft popping up. That's what we're seeing there.
Yeah. So around here, so this is the aircraft. We've probably got a bit more gain.
Yes. Maybe mute that one.
So we can mute the first. Go back to this one. I don't know if this is a.
That's. Try and catch. That one maybe.
This one?
Yeah. Actually, this is tuner 1. This
tuner 1.
So actually, the tuner 1. Yeah, tuner 1 is a G5 RV, so it's not ideal, but you'll typically pick up.
I guess what this is demonstrating though is that you can be. We could just mute this actually. Yeah. We could go up to a gigahertz or more. What we're just trying to demonstrate here is that we've got on one piece of hardware. We've got 2 completely independent frequency ranges.
You can have up to 2 megahertz of spectrum
up to 2 megahertz on each tuner.
On each tuner.
So that is and that's the basic kind of getting up and running. If anybody has any specific questions about Uno and its use,
might be worth showing the band
happy
buttons.
So we have these band buttons. We currently have 3 categories of bands. So we've got ham lower, ham upper, and broadcast. And if you select any of these groups, then the array of buttons will change. So we've just gone into ham upper. We could go to 2 meters. We can go to 23 centimeters, and then we can go back to ham lower. We've got 80 meters, and what this is showing is the entire 80 meter band. So it's actually framing. It's not taking the sort of fixed sample rate that Uno starts with of 2 megahertz or 3 megahertz. This is framing the band specifically for each of these bands that we've set up, and there's also some broadcast bands, medium wave, long wave, and so on.
And in terms of, just for those who are completely new to RSPs, all the performance data is you can find on the web. We'll go to the website a bit later and show where the various information is. But you've got a pretty good high performance 14-bit SDR dual tuner in the case of the Uno, and single tuner in case of the other RSP family members. But I've just seen a question pop in. So can you, for example, set one instance in the lower end of the FM band and the other to anywhere else in the band? So yes, indeed, you could have 88 to 100 megs with one of the tuners, and then you could have 106 to 108 on the other tuner.
Yeah, I mean we could very very quickly show that. So we can go to
demonstrate it.
So what was that? So we can go to say 89. Let's go back. Let's unframe. So we're framed at the moment. So let's just unframe. So now we've got a 2 megahertz spectrum. That's actually taken me away from where I want to be. So I'm now going to show if I set the center to 89, say. Yep. In fact, I could just type in 89M. We've probably got a bit too much gain is what's going on there.
Okay.
And then for this band, for this up here, we could say go to 91.
Or go up to 106 to show right.
Well, we can do that. So
105
megahertz. and now we're at the top end of the FM band.
So do you want to just unmute and click on
So let me set this up for FM, wideband FM, 192 kilohertz. I'll do the same here, FM, wideband FM, 192 kilohertz. And now up here we can pick a station, unmute that. Now what we're seeing there is because we're transcoding the YouTube video, is that's affecting the processing power of this. Unfortunately, I'm only running on an i3 laptop, so what you're hearing there is that the whole system is just, we're hitting the limits of what the CPU can do.
Also, for copyright purposes, we better not play too much.
And we can't really play too much audio anyway.
A few seconds is all right.
Yeah. But if I wasn't broadcasting this across to YouTube, then I mean this laptop is the standard laptop that I take to every demonstration, and it very happily will run and demodulate two chunks of spectrum anywhere in the whole frequency range that we support. It just is struggling now because of the transcoding to YouTube.
Do you want to just give a bit of audio?
Yeah, we can do that with this one down here. Okay. We can unmute that.
Whoopi Goldberg's in it too, and she's also a fan of Tubbs.
He is one of a kind. He did this in 10 days.
There we go. Okay.
So I mean, you can see on the in Uno, you can see the CPU load is almost hitting 100%. So that's why you're getting those skips in the audio.
And of course, the exciting thing in the future will be when we have some noise cancelling software in future releases, that you could actually have one tuner on the same frequency as the second tuner, and then do some noise cancellation or diversity reception, signal enhancement. So that's something that it's in the works. It's not there today, but that's something that
the hardware's capable of it. Yeah. The API that we provide is capable of it. We've just got quite a backlog of features that we've been promising people for SDRuno, frequency scanning, which is what we're currently working on, and some other things to make it easier for us to go and support cross-platform, that we just haven't been able to get the things like diversity and noise cancellation stuff into Uno, but it will come. But anybody who wants to use the API as it is today can do, and it does work. We have some people, and you've done some blogs about it, John. About
if you go to the blog,
the people that have done that.
Yeah. So that
there's a question.
We have a question.
There's a couple of questions actually. Otso was first.
Yeah. So this is: can you save both channels independently as an IQ file?
Yeah. So each of these two tuner streams are completely, or even though they are from the hardware, they're phase and time synchronous. In SDRuno, we can treat them completely independently. So in the first instance of Uno, I can bring up the record panel, and I'll show you that here. And in the second instance of SDRuno, I can also bring up the record panel. So if I bring that across to here, and if I don't know, cross my fingers that the this laptop will take this, but we should be able to just hit record on both. Although unfortunately the window is disappearing behind, which I don't quite understand. There we go. So now what's happening here is that Uno is recording both of these streams as independently to two separate files.
And eating up your hard disk space.
And it'll eat up your hard disk space if you've got a wide sample rate. So the narrower the sample rate, you can specify the smaller the bandwidth. So I'll stop these. I'll stop these two recording.
Okay. Excellent. Good. And actually, I think Ismo's made the point. There are quite a few newcomers to SDRplay altogether. So it might be worth taking a few minutes, Andy, to just talk through each of the panels, each of the windows.
Yeah. So I guess SDRuno can, to some people who haven't come across it before and have been experiencing other applications, maybe SDR console or HDSDR, where they're just a single screen. Uno, or single window I should say, SDRuno is compartmentalized in a number of different windows. In future versions of Uno, we're going to try to simplify that into single windows, but right now this is the layout that we have to work with. So each of these panels has its own function. The one that's sort of there are two very important windows, which are the main window, which is I don't know if you can see my cursor there showing this one up in the top left hand corner. This is where all of the hardware control comes in. So this is where you will specify what tuner you want to use if you've got a dual tuner, like for the SDRuno, RSP Duo, or even if you've got an RSP2, you can specify which tuner, which antenna port you want to use. You've also got things like broadcast FM notches. In fact, I can show that here. If I click this button here, you should see that all the FM signals disappear. And that's so if these buttons are lit, it means that these notches are enabled. So we've just enabled the FM notch, and if I take it off, that's disabling. That's a hardware notch that's on the device, but is software controlled. And we have another one here for DAB as well. So if you're suffering from broadcast signals, these are quite a useful way of notching those out. You can also specify the amount of gain or attenuation that the device is using. In the settings panel, we can switch between attenuation and gain. Some of you may be used to specifying gain instead of attenuation, so you can do that there. And now the device will work very happily as it was before. And instead of down on, you can see on the second instance, we've got an attenuation of 57 dBs, and the attenuation slider is quite near the top. Up in the tuner 1 control, we're almost at maximum gain. There's 53 dBs of gain being applied. The amount of gain and attenuation you can specify will vary depending on the band that you're operating in, but SDRuno will take care of all of that for you. You just use the RF slider to get as much gain. And
in the event that there is an overload situation, you get a nice.
Yeah, I don't know if we're going to have enough signal to prove it, but if we don't actually know.
FM,
but if you was at maximum gain, and if the ADC was overloading, you will get a message in the main window that says ADC overload, and then you would just back off the RF gain until the ADC overload message went away. That's pretty much it for the main window. It's primarily hardware control. The next important window is the RX control panel. This I think is really designed to replicate sort of a piece of hardware, like a transceiver almost.
Like a classic sort of receiver front panel, isn't it?
Right. So you've got frequency input. You can specify the frequency input in a number of ways. You can either put your cursor on each of these digits and go up and down in single increments. You can also click in the frequency range and type of value. Let me just do this, otherwise it will.
The roller wheel in the centre of the mouse is really your tuning dial.
Yeah. So there's a number of ways you can actually set the frequency. You can also click in. We can also click in the frequency window and use the pad, the dial pad, which is what it was originally intended for, as an actual keypad. So I can say 104, and then I just press. Oh, actually, I've got a megahertz button on there. There you go, 104 megahertz. Then below that, you can set the mode. We've got AM, FM, synchronous AM, CW, and then obviously your single sideband modes. These are for obviously setting the demodulator, the correct demodulator, and then for things like FM, we've got sub modes. So we've got narrowband, narrowband, wideband. It is medium bandwidth, and stereo wideband FM as well. And then in addition to those, these 4 buttons over here underneath where it says filter, set the there are 4 preset filter bandwidths for each of the modes. So if I changed it to AM, you'll see that these change to 6K, 8K, 11K and 20K. You can also set things like notch filters. You can do software programmable notch filters. That's over on the right hand side. Then there's also things like noise reduction, noise blanking, and AGC. This is audio AGC control, not to be confused with the hardware IF AGC control. And then you've got a squelch. We can set a squelch level, and also volume control. And we've also got things like switching over the VFOs. You can have 2 VFOs, A and B, and switch between them, just like in a traditional transceiver. Obviously, you've got the S meter. One thing to say about the S meter and the values in SDRuno in general is that this is a completely calibrated system for every RSP. That's all the way up from the RSP 1 to the 1A, the 2, 2 Pro, and the Duo. They're all completely calibrated systems. So the measurements that you will make in Uno are accurate back to the input of the device. Also, in one of the settings panels, you can actually add additional gains or losses for if you've got cable losses or preamplifiers. If you want to account for that in your measurements, you can actually put that into a settings panel, and it will take that into account as well. So that's really the RX control panel. The next important window is you've got the main SP window, which is the SP1. This is the input spectrum, and you've got either the spectrum view or you've got the waterfall view. There's a number of ways you can configure this. You can have just the spectrum view if you so wish, or you can have just the waterfall view. The default is to have them both on the same panel. You could, if you also wanted to, overlay one on the other. Some people prefer that. The palettes for this is configurable. In each of these panels have a settings button where you can change the palettes and the different color schemes. You can also change the range. So if you want to change the scale of the y-axis, for example, I can just click on the spectrum range, and I can do that so that I can zoom right into signals. So there's a lot of configuration, a lot of control. I say to people that SDRuno is as easy or as complicated as you want it to be. If you just want to visualize spectrum, click on signals, you really can just have that. You can just literally set it up as this and just click and listen.
And can you change the direction of the waterfall, Andy?
Yes, you can. In the settings panel, there's a little checkbox down here that says WF reverse. So if I click that, you'll see that the waterfall excuse me, the waterfall is now going upwards.
Is time going backwards?
We can actually also we also have these tick marks. So you can timestamp the waterfall, and we've also got a feature which is up in the top bar here, which is power and SNR to CSV. So what this will do is, if you enable this, it will capture the frequency. It will capture the frequency and the power of the signal that you're tuned to. And it will continue to output that over time to whatever time interval you have set for the waterfall time step.
That's great for if you've got some mysterious EMC problem, or this intermittent interference is coming. You can set this going and then actually build up some data on what time of day it's happening, and perhaps track it down to. That's something to do with the washing machine coming on, or it's some of the RSGB EMC experts use this and some of their own software to to do detective work for EMC tracking down EMC problems. So that's a very, very useful feature.
Yeah. Ismo mentioned Zoom. We have a couple of things on the Zoom. So we've got the Zoom in and out buttons here. So if I specify if I select a frequency that's away from the center, what Uno will do is as you increase the zoom, it will bring the VFO that you've selected to the middle of the screen. Obviously, if you go really far, if I lock the LO path and the LO frequency, and if I go over here, over right to the very left hand edge of the screen, obviously when I zoom in, it can't bring the VFO to the center because there's no data beyond the edge of the screen. So every click of the zoom will get you closer and closer to the. It will keep bringing the VFO into the center as it can. But if I go back out all the way and click somewhere that has got plenty of data either side of it, as soon as I zoom, it will bring the VFO into the center of the display. We've also got the resolution bandwidth that we can increase or decrease. So that's now at a 16K FFT, and if I click again, that's a 32K FFT, and the resolution bandwidth values are all are all displayed on the bottom of the spectrum in the panel there.
Is it worth Andy saying something about the LO lock and when you might use that or not?
So by default, the LO. So really, what you're interested in is the VFO frequency. You probably don't, in a normal system, you probably don't care what the LO frequency is. And for those who aren't really familiar with the two different terms, obviously the VFO frequency is the frequency that you're interested in. That's the frequency that you want to demodulate and listen to. The LO frequency is the only frequency that the hardware cares about, and the LO frequency, the hardware LO frequency is always in the center of the data that you receive. It's always in the center, and the sample rate determines the amount of spectrum that you see either side of the LO frequency. So what you can see in this example, we've got an LO frequency of 104.442 megahertz, which will be in the middle of the display. Because I locked the LO, so in the main window, because I locked the LO now cannot move. So when I'm changing the frequency in here by the scroll wheel or by clicking, the LO frequency will not move. So this spectrum display will never change from beyond what you're seeing here. So I can go to the edge and I can go down, 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 down. I can get to the end and it won't let me go any further than the edge of the screen. I'm scrolling down and it's not allowing me to because there's no data down there because the LO is locked. If I bring the VFO back to somewhere near the middle, and if I unlock the LO, now the LO is free to move with the locked at the but obviously the difference between the VFO and the LO is maintained. So now I'm still going to move the the VFO, but now you can see that the LO is also moving at the same rate. I probably need to increase the step size for you to see this. Let's increase the step size to a...
Actually, that's worth just mentioning as well, because this is a common question.
So people do ask about the step size. So in SDRuno, each of the modes has a default step size. So if I click on FM, the step size will automatically change to 100 kilohertz. If I click on AM, the step size will automatically change to 1 kilohertz. If you want to change those defaults, then whilst you're in that mode, you right click on the frequency display in the RX control panel and you can select the new tuning step. So currently we're in FM, so you can see that 100 kilohertz is selected. If I now choose 50 kilohertz, this now becomes the default for the FM band. And so now I've got a 50 kilohertz steps, and if I go back to the SP1 display, and I'm now scrolling, and we're now scrolling at 50 kilohertz steps. But this illustrates the fact that the LO lock button is not pressed, so the LO is allowed to move, but it maintains the distance between the LO and the VFO. So the spectrum, the amount of spectrum we're seeing is obviously the same, but it's just being moved up and down in frequency. And now if I go to AM, we're going back to a kilohertz because that's what AM is, and if I go back to FM, we go back to 50 kilohertz. So I've now changed, because I've now changed the step size to be 50.
Yeah.
People do say, well, I changed the step size, but it didn't keep. And what happens is that I don't think people realise that each of the modes has its own default.
Yeah.
So once you've changed it for one mode, if I now go to single sideband, you'll find that we're now at a 500 hertz.
Because I know personally, I tend to always, I prefer 100 hertz. It's just a matter of personal preference, and once it's changed, it then remembers it
for that mode.
For that mode.
Yeah. So that's an important point.
That's useful.
The other couple, I'll just quickly touch on the other couple of windows. The Orgs SP, which is the SP2 window, is the output spectrum. So this is the demodulated spectrum. Here you can see what filter bandwidth we've selected. So here we've got, you wouldn't for FM you wouldn't do this, but just as we've got a single side, we've got lower sideband selected with a 3 kilohertz filter. So you can see that we've got an asymmetric filter here from 0 to minus 3 kilohertz, 3 kilohertz. I can change this on the fly, so I can grab the red bars of the filter, and I can change it. I can widen it. So
you're just left clicking.
I'm just left clicking and holding whilst I'm moving the red line. Now this isn't stored, so this is a kind of an instantaneous thing. But this is an easy way for if you're seeing, let's say you've got a frequency here that you don't want to be demodulated, then you just remove it.
It's great for selectively removing.
Yeah, it's a very good selectivity tool.
Particularly, I guess, for the medium wave DXs, where you're going to find multiple stations, and it's almost down to the audio content of the modulation. You may be able to actually separate, two signals by cleverly selecting the subset of the audio spectrum to listen to.
Yeah, and I think it's so currently this isn't stored, so I can play around with this, but when I go, if I switch to a different filter and come back, I'm back to the 0 to minus 3K filter that I had before. In future versions of Uno, we're going to allow these customizations to be stored, recalled. So there'll be presets. But we're going to figure out how to best do this, but there'll be customizable presets. So that's that. And then we've got things like the memory panel. So if I'm on a particular frequency that I'm interested in, I want to store, I just select it and then I just press Control S, and that's now stored that into the memory panel. And if I store another one, if I click over here and sorry, Johnson, and I click it and I just do Control S again, I've now got another frequency, and I can selectively click on these and it will load them back in.
And that can be useful if there's particular stations that come and go or might only be available when the conditions are perfect. You can actually have multiple VRXs set up for each of these simultaneously, either with a mute or a squelch level, or just playing away in the background.
Yeah, the when you save these memory panels, they're just text files, so you can edit them. You can you can create your own set of frequency lists. I think there's a lot of people on the Facebook groups that are sharing memory files with lots of different frequencies in them. We're going to try to make that more of a useful panel. The function that we're implementing right now in Uno is the frequency scanning, and obviously the memory panel is quite important for that. So we're trying to make more of a use than we have done so far with the memory panel. I don't think it's a panel that has a lot of power, but is really It's normally overlooked quite a bit.
That's good.
So that's pretty much all of the panels. When you install the software, from the option button, there is the user manual as well. One of the bottom options there is for the user manual. So I would. It's a reference manual, so it's quite a dry document, but there's a lot of good information in there for the general use of SDRuno.
Yeah, very much a reference book to use in conjunction with, and we'll come on a bit later and show you on the website where all our videos can be found. We've got a growing number of videos,
lots of documents,
to demonstrate pretty much everything that Andy has been talking through here. Probably worth a mention, obviously, SDRuno is our software, and we continue to develop that, but we do have support for some of the other popular third-party packages. So we work with Simon Brown on SDR Console, and also with Mario and Elsie with HDSDR, which uses an XTIO file. Probably not time to go into that today, but maybe some of you have had experience of those packages, and we provide support for those. And in a moment, I think we're going to come on and see an example of one of the Unix-based packages, which is Cubic SDR, which is another third-party package, and we're going to perhaps move on to demonstrate remote access using that and a Raspberry Pi. But before we do, is there anything else anyone wants to ask about, specifically about SDRuno, while we've got it up and running, or about the RSPs in relation to SDRuno? Maybe while we just give you a minute in case there is anything there, I could just address a question that came in earlier, so this is to do with the SMA ports of the RSP2 versus the RSP1A and the RSP Duo. Obviously, over time, our products have evolved, and the RSP1 was our first product. Was it 4 years ago now that we introduced that? And it was very well received, but like with all things, we learnt that there were things we could do better, improvements we could make. The availability of additional components had allowed us to really move on with the RSP2, adding some additional filtering, better performance in many respects. Plus, of course, the big thing about the RSP2 is the multiple antennas that are switchable, and we were very aware of the sort of low frequency and VLF interest in our products, and at the time we optimized the what we call the high Z port, the high impedance port, with the green connector to really have good performance all the way down to 1 kilohertz. But we were slightly limited with the SMA ports in that due to the filtering components that we had available, the attenuation starts to roll off below 1.5 megs. Actually, for medium wave, where there's typically plenty of gain anyway, you can get away using, on the RSP2, the SMA ports down into medium wave. But when you get down to LF and VLF, obviously you have to interface with the high Z port. Now, what we were able to do when we came to the RSP1A was re-engineer that and have a single port that went all the way down to 1 kilohertz. And the latest device of all, obviously the RSP Duo, takes that design and incorporates on both tuners. Both SMA ports are capable of going all the way down to 1 kilohertz. So that's obviously an additional advantage if you've got something like a Welbrook loop or something that goes from kilohertz to up all the way through HF. You can just have the single antenna connected permanently without having to change around. So the question was, what why is that? And really, it's just as we've evolved the products and been able to do more with them. But in terms of performance, the exact specifications, everything is really a trade-off in the design of all these parts. And I've got a big fat printout here that I've made. We take this to exhibitions with all the data and detailed specifications, noise figures, gain levels for the RSPs across the different frequency bands. And so, there'll be some nuances there in terms of what seems to work better at certain frequencies than others. But as with everything, it's really down to, in practice, in your real environment, what works best. And we found the best way to answer specific detailed questions is to go to our forum, go to our communities, describe what you're trying to do, and you will get real answers from people quite close to probably some of the stuff you're trying to do, and you can get a real feel for the performance of all the RSPs. So we'll come on to show you the forums and where you can find this help in a while. But I think at this point, I don't think we've had any more specific questions on SDRuno. So I think we'll move on and talk about remotes and.
So one of the so we'll shut SDRuno down now, and we'll have a quick look at some remote access. So let's close these down. Right. So what we've got hooked up here, if we can get the camera over, is we've got a Raspberry Pi. Some of you that come to the demonstrations and the exhibitions may recognise this. I don't know if you can. It's just a Raspberry Pi that we've got on the back of a 7-inch touchscreen. So the Raspberry Pi is on the back there. I don't know if you can quite see that. You see that? Yep. And
do you want to make it big?
Oh yeah. Okay. So let's do this. Sorry about this, guys. Let's do. Here we go. How's that? Is that a better view? So yeah, Raspberry Pi on the back of a 7-inch touchscreen. You can get this 7-inch touchscreen from the Raspberry Pi website. There's a couple of questions coming about data modes. So we'll just do this remote connection, and then we'll talk about digital modes in a second. So we've just got via a USB cable. We've got an RSP1A that we've connected up here, and we'll take this one, John.
Yep, that's the.
Is that right? This one.
Yep.
So we'll just disconnect the Wellbrook from the Duo, RSP Duo, and we'll connect that up into the 1A. Okay. So we now have a signal going into the 1A, and we've got the Raspberry Pi on the network here. So this menu system, if you download the image from our website, which we provide, it will boot up with this menu system. It has a number of applications. We're going to do a new version of this soon with some more software. We're going to put GNU Radio and other stuff like that on here. But you'll see at the top here, let me just move the cursor out of the way, we've got things like SOAPy Remote, Cubic SDR, there's some ADSB software, but the thing we're going to demonstrate right now is SOAPy Remote. So I'm going to select SOAPy Remote here, and I'm going to start it by hitting OK. And now what's happened here is that in a window, this is now a server application. So now this Raspberry Pi is now acting as a server for the RSP. So if we come back over to the PC, what I'm now going to do is I'm now going to start up an application called Cubic SDR that some of you may be familiar with. And what we'll do is we'll switch the screens back over. And now what we'll do is, if Cubic SDR plays ball, which hopefully it will. It seems to be in some sort of a loop. What's it doing? It's still querying the device. It's done a lot of communication to the Raspberry Pi. There we go. So what Cubic has then done is it's found all of the looks like, as you know, I've got a number of microphones connected. So it's found all those. It's found the Duo, which is still connected, but it's found the RSP1A, which was on the local network. Because the Raspberry Pi is on the same network as the laptop, you don't have to specify any IP addresses. It just finds it. If it was on a wide area network, if it was sort of in a different location, then you would click down here and click on Add. We'd add a SOPA remote device, and then you could specify the IP address of that remote location, and it would work in just the same way.
What sort of internet speeds would we
need? It would purely come down to how much bandwidth you want to that you want to look at. I would suggest keeping it fairly low if you're going to do certainly wide area network work. But that's something you'd really have to sort of just see. So we've got we can do all the sort of same things as we could have done in Uno. We can specify the gain. We can specify things like whether we've got IQ compensation. We can turn the bias T on and off, and the notch filters. We can do all of that same way, and specify how much spectrum we want to look at. So we've done all that, and now we're going to click Start. And now what you're seeing here is this is spectrum that's coming from the Raspberry Pi that's on the network over there. And I can, I think this is at about 1 megahertz, so this is what AM, so this is going to be AM, so we're going to listen to a local station.
And I think that point is correct to a point, but I don't agree with it entirely. I think charities are doing everything they can to raise funds to help all manner of ex-military people, those who have been disabled, those who are a little bit older and need a bit of support.
We don't make it difficult for you to access your winnings. Anything you win with us is paid in cash, straight away, with no wagering requirements and no restrictions, giving you full control over your money. Visit playojo.com, the fair casino.
Why that's not registering the tick.
We don't want that coming out, do we, Andrew? You can text 81333, start your text 3, see what happens in Watford stays in Watford.
So you can so that was very, you can see how easy that was to set up. Literally just turned on the Raspberry Pi, enabled the server software, and then just fire up Cubic on the remote device. It doesn't have to be a Windows Cubic. Cubic will run on Linux and Mac, so you can have those. In fact, you can have any combination of server and client with that setup. Now, Cubic clearly doesn't have the same amount of functionality as something like SDRuno does. I mean, SDRuno previously it was Studio One, and that was in development for about 6 years. Relatively speaking, Cubic is what, 2 to maybe 2 and a bit, 3 years in development, and Studio One was a commercial application that somebody was working on full time. Cubic is an open source application that somebody or a couple of people are working on in their spare time. So it's obviously going to have a different set of functions, and it will develop at a different rate. But it's for accessing things like remote devices. It works extremely well, and you can see how easy that was to just kind of get up and running. We are going to be adding remote access to SDRuno. That's also coming. So just to kind of give you a brief...
So that's probably 1.4.
So just to kind of give you a brief rundown of where we are with SDRuno, we're working on version 1.3 right now, which is the core functionality for that is to have scanning, because that was that's been a long time promise. So that's coming. It'll also have IQ output for a specific frequency. So it'll have better hooks into applications like CW Skimmer, and we'll have better audio support. We're also, in every version of Uno, we also do something that is moving towards cross-platform. So the 1.3 will move away from a registry, and it will have an INI file for all of the settings. It's working well at the moment. That has a lot of benefits in terms of people being able to share INI files between each other. So if one of you has a specific setup and you want to share that within a group, you'll be able to share your INI files with another person, and they'll basically get up and running with the same setup. So that has some nice benefits that we're going to be bringing. So 1.3 is coming very soon. The version after that, 1.4, is that's when we're going to be adding all of the software for the RSP Duo in terms of diversity, noise cancellation, direction finding. We're going to re-engineer SDRuno such that it will work with. We're going to develop an API for demods, so people will be able to either get demods from other people or develop their own demods specifically that will run with Uno.
Which actually ties us back to this question of
right. So the
radio
question about digital modes is that right now you can take the demodulated signal from applications like SDRuno, but also SDR console and HDSDR, and you can via what's called a virtual audio cable. You can basically take that demodulated signal and send it through to other applications that will do the digital decoding, multi PSK, Phil-Digi. There's a DSD Plus. There's a
DSD Plus.
There's a few of them. Obviously, you'll probably know more of them than I will.
And again, in a moment, we'll come on to show you the applications catalogue with links to many of videos on how to do that stuff.
Yeah. And so that's 1.4. That's going to be a big thing. So as part of that release, we will be doing plug-in demods for the Duo for things like diversity and that sort of thing. And then
and for the older RSPs, it obviously work with all these other plugins. That, everything from these new digital modes.
It's very important for us that each version of Uno still works as best it can with all of the products. It will obviously exploit the features of the new products, but it will also fully support all of the RSP range, all the way from RSP 1 upwards. And then the version after 1.4 will have remote client server support, and it'll the aim is that it'll be as easy as you've just seen it running now.
And actually, Ismo just makes the point, you can use TeamViewer and actually remotely access SDRuno. It's obviously quite a bit of latency, and but that is a
way of
alternative.
Yeah, that is a way. You could also use SDR console.
Yeah, SDR console
server client.
Version 2 supports the 1, the 2, the 2 Pro. The focus from Simon has been to really work on version 3, which is a slightly different approach, where the whole IQ stream is accessed, which does limit the bandwidth sometimes of what you can get over there, even with quite a good connection. But on that one, we've got the RSP 1A and the RSP Duo and the RSP 2. No, we haven't got the 1A yet on the version 3.
Oh, is it not coming?
I don't think it's there yet. Simon's talking about adding it, but so you just have to double check. But across version 2 and version 3 of SDR console, you've got remote access. And interestingly, for those of you who haven't got an RSP, if you want to sort of dial into RSPs around the world. There's quite a lot of RSPs at any one time on both the version 2 and the version 3 remote server. You just go to SDRradio.com and follow the guides. And again, I think we've got a how-to guide and a video on our website, which will show you.
Right. Okay. So should we do that then?
So
should
I
we
think
go and have a look at some? Unless there's any other specific questions. Hi, Yuka.
We'll just say a big hello to Yuka. Yeah. Hi. So let's have a quick look at the website.
Let's close this down, and we'll bring up. So hopefully you guys can see that. We'll have a quick look at how the website's organised and some of the useful data is to find.
I mean, we could just perhaps go along the top there. The start here is really where we recommend newcomers to go, just in terms of guiding you through the flow to make sure you end up with the right software and everything is logged in terms of should you have any problems and need to come to us for support. Under the products, you've got specific technical detail about each of the products. So we can click on RSP1A, and you've got links to the data sheet, detailed technical information, and video guides. But probably the most important one is the support over here, where you'll see this thing called Applications and Support Catalogue, and this is great for specific problems or trying to do new things with your RSP, or just get a feel for what can be done with an RSP if you haven't thought of getting one yet. So this is a searchable index of a combination of videos and documentation. You'll see on the left column here, if there's a little YouTube video, it means it's a video. If it's a PDF symbol, it's some kind of document. And the default is to see the whole catalogue, the whole list of videos and documentation. But at the top here, you can down select into various categories. Like if you're just interested in reviews about the product, then you can see all these reviews here. And if it's a particular one of interest, you just click on or hover over the either the video symbol or the PDF to get a bit more information about what it is if you go there. So here we are. This is YouTube tech channel. Tech Minds introduces the dual tuner RSP Duo. So we've also put references to some of these third-party vloggers, I guess you call them, some of whom do a very professional job and really help to bring alive some of the capabilities. So you've got hardware related, so a common application for transmitting radio amateurs is obviously PAN adapters, and receiver owners as well. But we've got videos that have tips and tricks, use of third-party software like Ham Radio Deluxe. So any number of different useful documents and applications are all under Applications and Support. If you click on the Support Center, then you can actually raise a ticket, and it's literally as easy as putting your contact information, and then you'll get one-on-one help with any questions you have. And we've got, as well as here in Europe, we've got a couple of guys in the US, so between us we're covering pretty much a very long sort of 14-hour day of coverage, and can usually get back to you pretty quickly, helping out with whatever help you need. But we are limited in number, we're very busy, and much more powerful is actually the huge community of users out there. If you go under community, you can click on our own forum, which has up to about 5,000, nearly 5,000 members, registered members. And again, this is a good searchable database of questions. You can get comments. It's separated into some general areas like antennas specific to SDRuno, general discussions. We update and provide news here. For those of you interested more in the kind of lab use of the SDR, for what it's also very good at is a spectrum analyzer. There's a whole section on spectrum analysis and some alpha software that we've got developed by Steve Andrews here, and that will be going into beta in the coming weeks. So this community is great. One of the we manage this, we moderate it, and it does mean that we have to check on the posts to begin with because of abuse, and we have had some problems, haven't we, in the past, which is unfortunate. What it means is you might post a question and it doesn't appear for some hours until we happen to spot it, and
it's normally pretty quick.
We're normally pretty quick, but another quicker way to get real-time comment is obviously the Facebook groups, which we'll come on to in a moment. Oh, okay. Actually, we could flick across. So the biggest, most powerful Facebook group, which was founded by, I guess it was Paul Jones and Mike Ladd originally, a few years ago now. That has, as you can see, nearly 10,000 members, and it's a very lively forum. And if you just write your question in here, it's a closed group, so it's a safe community. If we get any problems, obviously people might get expelled, but you're amongst friends, and it's a pretty forgiving and fun community, isn't it? People,
it's very supportive.
Very supportive. People ask what might afterwards seem like a dumb question. I think you're pretty well treated with respect.
The nice thing I think about this Facebook group and also the forum is that you're asking people who are quite often doing the same thing that you're trying to do. So rather than somebody asking us how to get maybe like a third-party application running, which we're not familiar with, there are a number of people probably out there that have already done it, and they are very supportive of people. So don't think that you're asking a dumb question. It's we've all needed help from those resources at some point.
I mean, there's some great, but there's this Roger Need guy. I mean, he's just prolific. He'll go to any lengths to.
There's a number of people on both systems that are very active, are very knowledgeable, and very very willing to help. It makes they're both very good resources for people.
So as well as the SDR Play group forum, there's also another one, which is the SDRplay SDRuno chat group, which is just a more sort of intensely SDRuno oriented
specifically for Uno
group.
Yeah.
So again, you could search through here and often find useful tidbits on what to do. So that's the Facebook group.
A couple of questions are coming there.
Just before we leave the website, I think I suppose
Ismo is actually asking about purchasing.
You read my mind, because the most important one of all, obviously, if you want to purchase an RSP, just hit on the purchase page, and if you happen to be in Finland, look for Finland, and we at the moment really take payment via credit card in GB pounds. The pound is quite favourable, I think, at the moment. So the products range from the 1A is £76 plus VAT. So by the time you add 20%, it works out about £91. So it's about 100 €20, something like that, plus shipping. So
we take support PayPal as well. PayPal,
we support PayPal,
and, PayPal cards.
Yeah, and you basically just fill in here if you want one. Do you want to click on a one, and it ripples through, works out the shipping cost, adds the VAT. So there are £109 for an RSP.
So that's including shipping and
VAT. And obviously all the SDRuno software is free of charge.
All the software is free download from the website.
Yeah. So basically that's the purchasing process.
Yuka's asked about new hardware.
Yeah.
I mean, we're always looking at new things, aren't we? New ideas.
We're
don't think we have anything.
There's nothing we're ready to announce now, but we are always looking for inputs, and we're certainly aware of some of the challenges, particularly if the DX is there, in terms of can we go that extra step in terms of performance. But it's there certainly won't be anything in the next 4 or 5 months. Where are we now? But we hope to be able to start talking about a new product, probably in the first quarter of 2019. But it's nothing that we're ready to sort of announce at the moment. With any development, it's always a case of a trade-off between support for the current products and getting new products out the door. But we certainly hope to continue the trend and keep adding improvements.
There's plenty. I mean, with each product release, we always get lots of inputs and suggestions on more products. Yeah. So the idea bag is certainly full at the moment.
I was with a group of Cambridge amateurs last night, and what was kind of rewarding was there was someone, he said, "Look, I've still got 2 of the original RSP ones, and I'm going to be just setting them up remotely to do this, that and the other." So it's good that even the older products remain very, very useful.
Absolutely.
Okay. If I hope we've addressed purchasing. Obviously, I ought to recognise the fact we do have a very, very loyal set of resellers and channel partners. And whilst it's always nice if people come direct to us, we don't actually have anyone in Finland as a reseller. So, and most of you guys speak brilliant English anyway. So maybe you get a good deal just coming to us. But on the website under distributors, you can see some of the other European-based resellers in Germany and across Europe. For those of you who actually work in electronics and maybe at work you've got you use RS Components, they're another channel partner of ours who's sort of addressing more the professional market for our products, but they often provide good deals on shipping and so on. But again, if you've got any specific questions, raise a ticket. We'll be happy to answer. Right. Another question about the waterfall. Can I'll let you take that?
Okay, so where I've heard this request from before is something equivalent to the continuum mode that I think it's SpectraView, or I think Spectrum View or SpectraView has, which is essentially, I think, just measuring the noise floor. I don't really know too much about that, but that's the only time I've heard of anybody requesting the waterfall going.
Can you maybe Rachel, I guess it is Rachel, say a bit about what you're trying to do there? I guess NDB. So NDB hunting. So that's the 50 kilohertz beacon, the non-directional beacons. I guess they would. I'm trying to think. They would stand out better if you. Oh yeah, you just want to see. You want to see the because they only pop up now and then. You want to see longer periods of time, I guess. Is that right? Is that the reasoning?
I don't understand. I guess I don't really fully understand the difference between the vertical display or horizontal display, unless
the amplitude would remain there.
That's what waterfall does anyway.
Yeah, we'll have to maybe follow up. Maybe you could raise a ticket actually, Radio, and just
easier to read Morse code.
Just okay. Okay.
Right. I mean, it hasn't. I mean, that's the first time I've heard of a request like that. Like I say, apart from this continuum mode, which does go horizontally.
Yeah. That might take.
I mean, I can't promise anything. I could certainly take a look and see what's involved. But the sort of the feature list for Uno is pretty chocker right now. It's kind of keeping us. But
now,
we'll have a look
and maybe we could ask on the or maybe you'd like to post that on the Facebook group
if you
and
could post it,
say you've been asking SDRplay if they do it. Is there anyone else wanting it? And obviously, the more people, the higher up the priority it would come. So
yeah.
And actually, that's the great thing about SDRplay has kind of evolved into this collaboration of users and our team, and because as well as Andy, we have one or two other software partners who help us and work behind the scenes to bring all this stuff together. And then we're very grateful to people like Ismo, who's just done such a super job of encouraging the communities, and in the case of Finland, and I'm always very mindful of how Scandinavia and Finland really pioneered mobile phones. I used to visit Finland to visit Nokia many times in years gone by, and it's always had that kind of pioneering sort of push for excellence, and that's been good. So I do thank you for that. I don't know if there's anything else you'd like to cover if we're coming to a close here, but we've certainly enjoyed doing one of these webinars. We always say we ought to do more, and I think Ismo really kind of encouraged us to do it. It's quite a thing to get all the technology working. So thank you, Andy, for.
No, it's been good. If anybody has any other questions that they think of once we've finished, don't hesitate to raise a ticket and come through and ask us, or ask on the forums or Facebook, because there's a lot of very useful information out there. It's just difficult in a kind of an hour to explain everything that we do. It's a difficult thing to cover, but we really appreciate everybody's time coming here and joining us for this. So that's good.
Yeah. Okay. Well. Yep. Thanks again, and till the next time.
From Salo. Okay.
Okay.
Okay. Many thanks, everybody.